get into a little bit more of the details here. So when we're talking about clients and payer sources, I have a few questions that came to mind for me. So the first being, have we kind of hit the top of the market in terms of what the typical client private pay rate can be? And obviously it's going to vary based on where folks are across the country. But is there more room there, or are we kind of at a threshold as far as that goes? Obviously, it's related to caregiver wage, tied directly to caregiver wages. And then I think very relatedly to that, the payer mix may, if private pay clients, if we're close to the top of the market, then does that mean that the payer mix may change as we go forward this year? And so, yeah, how are you all thinking about that?
I don't think there is a top of the market. Quite honestly, the desperation and the demand for the services that people purchase from our companies is endless. You just said it, Jen. So the youngest baby boomers, whatever that stat was, it was very profound. I don't know what it was, but what it meant was we're not even close yet in terms of, and more specifically, that segment of the baby boom population is already intimately aware of what home care is because they've gone through it. They're the adult children who have already gone through it with their parents. And so I think gone are the days of sort of the total lack of awareness around the option for home care and the viability of home care. And I think that people, at least in my experience here in Massachusetts so far in 2023, we just increased all of our private pay rates significantly. We are no less than $40 an hour, somewhere north of that, places like Martha's Vineyard and Nantucket, even more. Nobody blinked when they got the letter. In this climate, it's easy to say, okay, well, you're going to pay more for eggs. You need more for your mom or dad's care. And it's a pretty easy conversation. I get that it's expensive, but I'm not seeing the market topping out at any point in the near future.
Yeah, I would agree with Kevin. The demand is so high and it's not going away. It begs the question, I won't repeat what Kevin says, but it begs the question then, who does it exclude from the market? There will always be people who will need this and can pay for it. And then it begs the question, who is suddenly priced out of a market, which is real. We serve clients who are, where the dollar and amount is not an option at all in their household. And we have others who are really sort of like to the half hour deciding how many hours of service they can afford. And so I think that becomes the other part of that. Yes, there'll always be demand in someone who can pay for it, but who might be priced out at what point.
Mm-hmm. I definitely agree with everything that's been said so far by Eric and Kevin. I do think that it really depends on the kind of services you're providing and the quality of services that you're providing, and maintaining the relationships with all of your clients individually and making sure that they are happy at all times. I think that does a lot for people, and a lot of people are willing to spend a little more money on the services because some of the other companies that they go to, especially what we've heard from our clients in our area, they don't get phone calls. They don't have a personal relationship. Somebody just shows up. And I think there's a difference in the kind of quality of care that you're providing, and it's always going to make a difference in what people are willing to pay. Do I think that there's really going to be a cap at the top of the market? No, I don't, because people are always going to be in need. And we're finding more and more now that people aren't really balking at our prices right now. We're not at $40 an hour or north of $40 an hour yet. But right now we do have clients that are at $36 an hour. So we're working our way there. So it's going to happen eventually. But I do think that there should be an emphasis on kind of diversifying where your payer sources are coming from. We work heavily with long-term care, and we're working really well with the VA. And so that has given us the opportunity to give breaks to some of our clients that maybe can't afford our sticker price, you know? So I think that's been really good for us in being able to provide services to people that really need them and not just turn somebody away because they can't afford what we have to offer.
Mm.
You know, I think that with the marketplace, and like I said, seeing caregiver wages increasing, I don't see that stopping anytime soon, especially in California. I'm sure Massachusetts, same thing where Kevin's at. What we do is directly tied towards the wages, basically. You can't run a healthy agency and not expect to have increase the rates in order to keep up with the payroll stuff. I think a lot of what has to happen is that agencies have to come up with creative ways in some cases so that people don't get priced out of the market, to come up with solutions for families, for care that maybe are a little bit outside the box occasionally. It needs to happen because otherwise you get families having to make hard decisions. I can't do complete overnight care any longer. I can only do 6 hours instead of 8 because now my budget only is allowing for this, or maybe my daily long-term care budget only allocates for so much money. We can't afford that out-of-pocket expense. So, I mean, we got to be sensitive somehow to what's happening with the families, because the rate increases, I know, like everything else, they're paying for eggs, they're paying for fuel, they're paying for other stuff. There's a limit to their budgets. And I think that's where, like I said, a lot of things we're going to have to come up with some creative solutions for care, maybe concierge services or sharing care options and things like that, that might end up allowing for these families to still get good quality care, but still allow for working within the budget constraints of what's going on right now.
Yeah, I think that it sounds to me like, I mean, there's a certain part of the market that's willing to pay for this, and that there's no limit really. And then there's this other part, I think, that Eric first highlighted, that maybe is always going to have trouble paying for this and paying for the care that they need. So I guess I'm curious about I guess it sounds like it's a part of some of your strategies, maybe Ken and Chris, to potentially continue to see how you can diversify your payer sources and packaging of your services to make it so that way there are options for that certain part of the market that's not maybe is priced out of paying out of pocket. That's really interesting and helpful, I think, to think about. I guess also related to that, my third question on the screen here, do you see your referral sources changing at all beyond those maybe either you're beyond your typical payer sources, basically, like your VA programs and Medicaid programs and things like that? Do you see other types of partnerships that maybe are going to drive clients to you, basically?
Well, in addition to the things like the VA relationships or long-term care insurance, so on, one of the things that I'm noticing as the baby boomer wave goes through, as people who are now hitting the age where they might start to consider wanting to explore care or research care, are much more internet savvy. So accessing information, sourcing information, looking up people's company, researching them, their Google reviews, things like that. It used to be the adult kids that were doing that exclusively for their aging parents. And I have parents in their 80s now, and they can do that, but just fine themselves. So I think that's something we have to be really mindful of, is that our clients are going to be reaching out to us more. We've already started to see that people in their 80s and even 90s sometimes, just, I read your reviews online and I really liked what I read, things like that. And so I think that's a really important reminder. And quite frankly, one of the reasons, Jen, why we went toward Augusta is just sort of recognizing that even that social media space is so familiar now to the demographic that is our clients, that being able to have a strong presence in that space too is really important.
I'll add that one of the things we've done, so relative to both sort of question 2 and question 3 on the screen, We are putting a great deal of emphasis at my company on diversifying revenue. So on any given month, we've got between 60 and 70% of revenue coming in from our state-funded business Medicaid in Massachusetts, referred to as Mass Health, and some of those waiver programs, and then again, maybe 35% private pay. In 2018, we launched a care management business to, again, a different stream of revenue, a different service offering, certainly a much more comfortable margin to allow us to be creative with some of the other stuff we do with home care, and also an important referral tool. And then most recently, we acquired a move management firm as well. And so we think that diversifying these revenue streams, finding different sort of adjacent, related, parallel universe services with enhanced profit margins are going to be the most effective way, at least for my company, to continue to support home care, continue to grow it, recruit nonstop, but again, sort of cushion and find some, opportunities for cross referrals internally.
I think that's really interesting what Kevin just had to say, because I think the landscape is a little different here in California. At least most other agencies in California don't work with Medicaid. It's just not really, the reimbursement rate is not something that we can work with. It's not really possible. Although we do work with a Medicare Advantage program. And that's that's something that for a long time, we're talking about not wanting to participate in any longer. And that's because their reimbursement rate is $28 an hour. And our private pay rate is $36 to $38 an hour. So it wasn't realistic to continue to do that until we were able to partner with the VA, and we are getting such a high reimbursement rate for the hours of care. That was able to kind of offset us a little bit so that we could still keep pulling those referrals from them. And then we're able, at the same time, to keep some of our caregivers working if they don't have specific set of skills. Maybe they don't do personal care. They're more companion care. Some of the referrals that we get from the Medicare Advantage program, we're able to keep caregivers working so that we don't lose them. And that's good for us. But also a lot of times they get an allotted amount of hours per month, and they're willing to pay a little extra to have a few more hours. So I think if we're able to participate in the program, we maintain the relationship, they care about us, we put a good caregiver in, and they want to keep that caregiver there, they're willing to pay a little more to keep them there.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, I think those are all really good points. It sounds like there's digital marketing, clients researching for themselves how to find the care that they need as opposed to their families doing it. There's diversification among the different payer sources and where referrals are coming from. And then there's also looking at how the higher margin programs actually kind of help subsidize some of the lower margin programs out there. It sounds like everybody's doing a little bit of that in some way. Hey Ken, I saw. I think there must have been a computer issue or something. I saw you drop off.
Yeah. I think our spectrum glitched over here for a moment, so we're back.
No worries. That it happens. Actually, before we leave this slide and go on to the next topic, we did actually have a question that came in that was relevant, I think, to what something that you had said earlier, Ken. This person wanted to know if there's any solutions that you've implemented to work within a client's budget. Maybe more specifically than I think you had mentioned, like concierge programs.
Concierge programs, we do some work in a couple different community settings to where we do something called shared care. So instead of having a private caregiver in the room, we'll have somebody that's on site that will share the cost of the care for several families. And so a couple of the communities that we're resident in, there may be 30 residents in that building we take care of. And so instead of paying a an hourly rate for somebody to sit in the room for medication reminders and such things like that. We actually have somebody that'll come in and out of the room throughout the day at a daily rate, which is much more affordable for the families. And then we dovetail stuff on tail ends of schedule. Sometimes we'll try and shorten schedules up. I mean, we try not to do that frequently, but it just with like I said, sometimes we've got situations with families that the cost of care is really expensive. There's a couple of our veterans that will service, take care of them on the front end of the schedule, and then they have a family member or a wife that needs specific care. So we'll tag that on the end of the schedule to make sure that person also gets the assistance. So the caregiver gets a full day shift work, and the client gets maybe not a full hit on a full day's worth of care there as well. So a couple things that we do there to help out.
Awesome. Thank you.